Okay, so now you say, okay, let's say I said 20 days. We just made that up, right? But that's pretty average for an indie film. All right, so you're going to shoot 20 days. Now, remember, each day that you shoot is going to cost you on average, in this case, say $30,000 between your crew, your cast, your locations, the money you're spending. So you're spending money pretty quickly in this phase. So you have to be on top of everything. That's why you need a good bookkeeper or financial people. You have to be super organized because all of a sudden you leave one thing off. You don't account for one thing, then all of a sudden it just balloons and multiplies. And at the end of the day, now you've spent $40,000. Where did it go? So you have to be super disciplined about all that kind of stuff and keep track of it. Now, there are tons of moving parts on set. So the key thing is to make sure everything happens as it's supposed to happen. So the director, if they're well planned out and during pre-production, what the director's done during pre-production is they said, okay, on this day we're shooting, and we'll use my example from before, 3 locker room scenes. And the way you sort of schedule your time on a schedule or on a set is the number of pages of script. All right. So remember I said before that a page of script is generally 1 minute of a movie. That's the general rule of thumb. Okay. There are obviously lots of exceptions to that, an action scene or something like that. But if it's a dialogue scene where, say, you and I are talking, 2 people are talking, in general, 1 page of script at the speed that we're going to talk normally will work out to about 1 minute of movie. So that's how you can kind of schedule it, right? So if you're doing a 100-minute movie and you are having 20 days of shooting, you're going to shoot about, on average, 5 minutes of script a day, which is about 5 pages of script on average. Some days you might shoot 6 or 7. The other days you might shoot 2 or 3, depending on, their setups and all that kind of stuff. But on average, it's, say, 5 pages of script a day. So you want to plan it, right? So the director in pre-production says, this day I'm shooting these 5 pages. So it's 3 scenes. So one scene is 2 pages, another scene is 2 pages, and a third scene is 1 page. That's my 5 pages. All right. So they say, okay, within that, I'm going to need this much time. So I get 1 day to shoot that. All right. Now, a good experienced director will say, in the morning, I'm going to, and by the way, let's say it's a 12-hour day. All right. Which is meaning that you're going to be there. Everybody's on set for only 12 hours. Now, some indie filmmakers will watch this and say, what, are you crazy? I'm there for 15 hours, 16 hours. And I say, no, let's keep it to 12 hours. All right. And that 12 hours, hopefully in the 12 hours, 1 hour will be for lunch or for your meal break, because you're going to have some either dinner or lunch, depending on what time you're shooting. They usually call it lunch. Whatever the meal is, it's always called lunch for some reason. Could be at midnight. They still call it lunch. So there's going to be 1 hour. Usually you don't have to. You could take 45 minutes. You can take a half an hour. But I like 1 hour because people need to wind down a little bit, take a break, eat slowly, digest their food type of thing. So now you have 11 hours. Okay. Now, people are going to need some time to kind of get up and running. And when you're setting your equipment and everything in the morning, it's going to take a couple of hours at least. So what the director and the cinematographer do is during pre-production, they plan all this. They say, okay, on this date, we're going to be shooting the locker room. The cinematographer says, how do you want, like, what do you envision the scene to be? And they're in the locker room, right? And they say, I think I want the first scene, I want the coach and the players sitting over on that bench there. And we're going to shoot from this angle, and this is the coverage we want to get, this angle, that angle, that angle. So the cinematographer says, okay, so I'm going to have to light it a certain way. It's going to take me 2 hours for my guys to set up the lights that morning. And it's, and they have a discussion, okay, 2 hours, blah, blah, blah. I'm just, again, making the numbers up, and this is more or less accurate. So then the director says, okay, fine. So you need 2 hours. All right. But I have done what we call a shot list. All right. A director does a shot list saying, these are the shots that I want to get in that scene, in that locker room. So I want to shoot a 2-shot. I want to shoot singles. I want to shoot over the shoulder singles. I want to shoot an above the coming down on them, with say a dolly or a crane, a jib or something arm. And the director might have 6 or 7 shots that he wants to get in that scene. So then the director says, okay, I'm going to give myself this amount of time for each scene. Now, the director works with an assistant director who helps schedule all this kind of thing. But they say, I want to take 3 takes of each shot. And each shot is going to take, say, a minute, because they're going to talk for a minute. And I want 3, so that's 3. But each time I stop, I have to reset the camera. So it's going to take, say, maybe 9 or 10 minutes to take this one take. And you do that through the whole thing. You have your shot list, and then you put a time to each of it. So now the director says, hey, for this scene, I'm going to need about 70 minutes of shooting, because these are the shots I want in the scene. And based on the amount of time, and I'm going to time how long it takes to actually do the scene and then reset it and do it again and give my actors a little break or something, it's going to take me 70 minutes to shoot that scene. So the cinematographer says it's going to take me 2 hours to light it, 70 minutes to shoot it, and that's one scene, right? And then you might have 10 scenes that day. So you do that for each of your scenes. How long is it going to take to light this? How long is it going to take to shoot it? And then you add it all up. And then hopefully it adds up to the amount of time that you have in the day. So, which is maybe you have 10 hours of shooting, right? But maybe you want to only try to shoot for 9 hours because your actors might get tired. Or maybe you have to change locations or change equipment. There's lots of things that happen. But you calculate that so that you can make sure that you give yourself enough time and plan enough to shoot your scenes within the time frame that you have and within the setup time it takes. And often a director will go too slow and they'll run out of time, and then they have to rush the end stuff because they took too much time on the beginning. Sometimes there's equipment failures. So all of a sudden you planned and you said, hey, we're going to be 70 minutes, but a camera breaks. So there's a half an hour of trying to fix it or something like that, or sound equipment or light or something. So stuff always happens. So the trick is to try to solve those problems and those challenges really quickly and keep moving. And also, maybe a actor's not feeling well, or they don't like their performance. They want to do it again. I mean, there's just so many different scenarios that come up that can delay you finishing all the shots that you had planned that day. But you got to finish them. All right. Now, me as a director, I am super, super like that whole producer director yin yang thing. My producer voice is so loud because I'm so fiscally responsible but as a director, I love the artistic side. I love the idea of being able to, work with the actors, give them more takes, try different things and all this kind of stuff. But as the producer side always says to me, keep your eye on the clock, keep your eye on the clock, always make sure you're on time, which is what I do. And so I'm very responsible to make sure that I get what we call coverage, which is all the shots, get all those shots shot. And even if I always shoot what I consider to be the most important shots first. So if there's a shot that I definitely need, like there's priorities, like these shots, you say, I definitely want them. And then some of the other shots, let me try it. Maybe I'll use it if it looks good. Like I'll try it and we'll see afterwards in editing. So you shoot the important ones first because that's what you tell the story with. And then you shoot the other stuff after, because if you run out of time, you don't get a chance to shoot that. You still have your major shots. So I always do that. But I always make sure that I'm either ahead of time on all my shots, because I'm just assuming that something's going to happen. I assume there's going to be equipment failure. I assume that somebody's not going to feel well. There's going to be an accident. I just assume. I don't want it to happen, and I'm not a negative guy. I'm a super positive guy, but I'm a realist. So I always just build in a little bit of extra time into my head to kind of stay ahead of it, just for a contingency in case something happens. Now, on my sets, most of the time, we finish early. We don't finish late. Most indie producers and directors finish late. They always go too late. They always have to keep their crew an extra hour or something like that. I tend to finish early, and that's because I built in this extra time in my head. And sometimes there aren't those issues. There's no, like I built in an hour of equipment problems. And if you get lucky that day and there's no equipment problem, then you have finished, and maybe you shoot something from the next day to get ahead of it, right? But I'm also of the philosophy is you don't have to kill people. You have 12 hours of their day, but you don't have to necessarily kill them. If you let them go an hour early that day, no big deal. They feel good. You got the performances you wanted. It looks good. Usually you take the whole day. Usually 12 hours turns into 12 hours. And again, like a lot of people watching this will say, well, that's a short day. I shoot 14 hours. And I say, like, why? Like, you're going to make your actors are going to be exhausted. Your crew's going to be exhausted. The performance levels are going to start to drop. Don't kill the people. Do it reasonably. Feed them well. Treat them well. You're a team, and you're moving quickly. And make sure you take good care of your team, and they'll take good care of you.
Is this like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. strictly, or
no?
Hours can vary.
It totally varies. It depends. I mean, you could if your movie takes place at night. Well, let's say there are night scenes in Rudy, right, where he visits the coach or the janitor guy at night and sleeps there and everything like that. So, if you can shoot what we call day for night, or night for day. So like if we wanted to shoot your office and make it look like the nighttime, but we're shooting during the day, we just black out all the windows.
Okay.
All right. And we make it appear that it's nighttime. But for a smaller budget indie film, you generally want to shoot the nights and the days in the time frame that they actually appear. So if it's a night scene, you generally want to shoot it at night because you don't want to have to spend all that money and time and effort to block it all out.
Okay.
Okay. So you could have a week of night shoots where you start at 6 p.m. and shoot till 6 a.m. You shoot when the sun goes down to when the sun comes up. You could have day shoots, you could have a combination of the two. So it depends what you're shooting and what the script calls for. And that's how you schedule it.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and you make it so that it fits in as good as possible. And you try to make it so that you schedule it so that people have enough time to go home and go to sleep. Like don't do a night shoot that ends at 6 a.m. and a day shoot that starts the next morning at 8, because then nobody's got time to go home.
Yeah.
So you got to plan all that. And plan a lot of it revolves around when the locations are available. Well, the first thing that it involves is, what the script calls for.
Right.
Right. So day, night, then you got when are your locations available? So you schedule kind of around that, because sometimes there's limited times you can use the locations. Then sometimes it's when your actors are available, because there's limited times that they can come or whatever. So scheduling is a real juggle. You have 10 balls in the air, and you got to, what about this person? What about that? What about this equipment? What about that location? What about time of day, night, this, that? I mean, so you're just constantly figuring these things out.
Is there a manager on set that's managing?
Yes.
This person has a complaint about this and that.
So depending on the size of your crew, with a $1 million budget, you'd have a pretty big crew. So you would have probably a production manager, and they would be doing that, the production manager. Now, the director has what we call a first assistant director and a second and a third. All right. So the first one basically manages the set. So they're the ones who say, okay, get the act. Like the director is just thinking artistically what they're envisioning the shot and working with the cinematographer and the actors to make sure they get the performances and the look of it. The first assistant director is doing the logistics of that. So they're saying, okay, they're wearing a headset and a radio, and they're saying, okay, actors, get prepared now. Go get makeup and costumes on now, because you're going to be shooting in 15 minutes. We need you on set. Camera crew, we're going to need you to do the blocking now. We need catering. We're going to get ready. You'll have lunch in an hour. Sound, do this. And it's just basically coordinating so that all these things can happen at the right time. That's what a first assistant director does. And then everybody comes in and they say, okay, they're the ones who have the big voice. Get ready for rehearsal. Let's rehearse this. Okay. The director says, okay, action. Or sometimes the first AD says action. And then it happens. Then they stop, and the first AD will say, okay, do you want to do it again to the director? Yeah. Okay, everybody reset. You go here, you do this. So the director's not actually doing that. The first AD is doing all that. That's a big job.
Yeah.
And it's a very important job. They're the coordinator. for the director, for the art department, like for the artistic side of the shoot.
Okay.
All right. The second AD is scheduling the next day of shooting, making sure everything's in place, making sure that all the people who have to be there are told, and all the elements that go into making sure that everything happens the next day and the following day. The locations are all available. That's on the directing side. Okay. On the producing side, you've got sort of a production, you've got what we call the head person on set is called a line producer. So the producer, like you're not always necessarily going to be on set. As a matter of fact, you're rarely going to be on set. You're just going to go to set to visit. You're going to be in the production office, making sure that everything is coordinated and that things are going well and that kind of stuff. So on set, you're going to have a line producer. They're kind of the person in charge there who makes sure that the equipment is there, the crew is there, the catering is there, that everything's going as it's supposed to go on set. They're the person. And then they're going to have a production manager who works with them to make sure that the money is being spent properly and coordinated, there's a lot of administration. Everybody signed their contracts for all the actors coming in. All the stuff that you have to make sure you have happening happens. So again, I am just, this is the tip of the iceberg. I know that there's going to be filmmakers watching this saying, yeah, he missed this, he missed a million things. I know I missed a million things because we're trying to do this in, 10, 15 minutes as opposed to 10 hours.
Yeah.
I can't list everything. There's a ton of stuff that the production team does and the directing team do to make it all happen. And when you get there, when you go to do this, the first time around, it's going to be overwhelming. Because you're going to say, holy smokes, there are so many moving parts. But after you've done it a few times, you just anticipate it. You know what's coming. You know what you have to do. Like anything else, right? You're just more experienced and it's not as overwhelming because you're expecting it.
Just need to go through it a few times.
Yeah, but if you surround yourself with good people, like who have done it before, then they have you covered and they anticipate all the stuff before it actually happens. The trick, like in any business, is to just know how to solve problems quickly and anticipate the problems so that you don't have problems. Just anticipate what's coming so that you don't have to have a problem. You've already addressed it before it becomes a problem. And if you do have a problem, because there always will be things, have a plan. Know how to solve it quickly. Like, for instance, I'll give you a perfect example, okay? A lot of indie films shoot outdoors because the stories are, a lot of scenes take place outdoors. What happens if you're shooting and it starts raining? You can't shoot, right?
Can't shoot.
You can't shoot. You can't, it's not the shot, it's the equipment's, you can't shoot. So what do? You just say, oh, lost a day of shooting? No, if you're a good producer and a good director, you have a contingency plan. You either have another way to shoot that scene, or you have another place to shoot it, or you have another scene to shoot indoors instead of that. You have lots and lots of contingency plans so that you don't lose a day of shooting and you keep going. And remember, you said efficiency. So that's what efficiency is all about. It's just having lots and lots of contingency plans to be able to keep the ball rolling. Like keep that ship sailing. Remember, you're paying the crew. The crew's on that ship. Like, the crew is there. And whether you shoot or not, you're paying them. You're paying the actors. Everybody is there. So you got to use those resources because you're paying for them. So make sure you have lots and lots of really good contingency plans for the event of everything, including, as crazy as it sounds, including like your cameras break. I mean, equipment breaks all the time. Right? Now you're shooting and all of a sudden you got this big, beautiful camera, boom, it breaks. Now what? Like, how do you do that? Well, you might have a second camera, in the truck because and it's very expensive to have a second camera sitting there doing nothing. So you probably have a prearranged situation with the camera equipment company to say, hey, if this were to happen, I need a camera on set within an hour, no matter where you are. And this is a typical thing to arrange in a shoot because you don't want to spend 6 hours waiting for a camera. So you have a second one available, that type of thing.
Okay.
But you got to plan for that. It doesn't happen organically. It doesn't happen, by magic. All these things are planned. And, people who have done it many times know sort of what to expect and how to deal with those issues very quickly. But how about this? An actor falls and breaks their leg, and they're like a lead actor. Okay, in a Hollywood shoot, they shut the set down. They got lots of money. Everybody gets paid. You go home. We wait until the actor gets better, right? In an indie film, you might rewrite the script. Like you literally, like all of a sudden your actor is not available and you feel bad. Everybody feels bad and everything like that. But you don't have the luxury of like just shutting it down and paying everybody because you're going to run out of money. So it's bad luck and you got to turn what we call lemons into lemonade. So you might have to sit down, bring your writer back and say, hey, we had this very unfortunate situation where our actor is not going to be able to, finish the week or the shoot or whatever. And we need to rejig the story to make it work. And you think, how do you do that? And it's like, you're right. You got to get super creative. Now that's obviously a super extreme example, but it could happen. And if it does happen, as they say in Hollywood, and I love this expression, the show must go on.
The show must go on.
The show must go on. If you have to change the show, so be it. The show goes on. You paid for it. The show goes on.
It seems like a lot of damage control. It's
tons of damage control. So indie producers who have been down this road know all about what I'm talking about. And again, this is the tip of the iceberg. There's probably horror stories out there way worse than what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Of things that happen, right? But that's part of being the magician, the juggler that a producer is. They figure ways to get around this. And if you're really good, you pre-think it all, which is impossible to do, but you pre-think as much as you possibly can and build contingencies in so that you're ready. Like people say, Jeff, you're crazy when I do my scheduling and I say, because I have 5 schedules going at any given time. I have the schedule that I really want to do. And then I have 4 contingency schedules. Like if bad weather, if equipment, if actor failure, if this failure, if that failure. So I kind of know like within a minute of something going wrong, I just take a breath and I go back and I say, okay, let me look at this. These are the contingency plans that I had for this scene. If something were to go wrong, which one makes the most sense to do at this point? Now, hopefully I never use any of those plans. Hopefully I've spent, probably 50 to 70 hours of extra planning that goes down the toilet that I never need to do because everything went right. But for that one thing that goes wrong, to have that plan to be able to move quickly and solve it saves you $30,000 that day of potential cost.
Wow.
The stakes are high. Or you suck it up and you shoot another day and you go over budget by 30,000. And that's not acceptable to me.
I don't think anyone wants to do that.
No, but sometimes if you don't know what you're doing, or you can't juggle you can't, dance and juggle and get around it, happens. I mean, stuff does happen that you can't avoid. Like a hurricane blows in. I mean, there's probably something you can do to do, but that's a tough one,
Yeah.
So, barring like major natural disasters and gigantic stuff like that, most of it you can plan for.
Okay.
It's hard and it's tricky and you got to be super creative. And sometimes it involves changing the story and changing a lot of, the elements of the movie, but the show must go on.
Well, you got to be prepared. You got to think things through.
Mm-hmm. It's just a lot of thinking, and that's where experience comes in. Yeah, but I can tell you, like the easy ones for me are, weather, rain.
Right.
Every single shot I know, if I have a contingency to shoot something else. Sometimes it's going to take a while. It might take an hour or two. Maybe you got to get another actor on set, or maybe that's why I say I have 5 contingency plans, right? So 4. So maybe I say, okay, if it rains when we're shooting this outdoor scene, then instead I'm going to shoot this scene. But then I see that actor is not available. They went, out of town for a week or something because they weren't scheduled. So I say, okay, I can't do that one. What about this one?
Okay.
Okay. Is this actor available? And well, this actor's available, but they're 2 hours, away from here. Okay. What about this one? okay, this actor, we called them, they can be here and set in, in an hour. Okay, can you guys set? Can we change art department? Can we get this shot ready? We're going to do it this way, do this here. And it's like people watching this are going to say that's like a ridiculous, crazy amount of planning. And it is a ridiculous, crazy amount of planning, but the costs are, I mean, I don't want to waste $30,000 of people sitting around doing nothing. So why not put the time and effort in to pre-plan it all?
Yeah.
And hopefully never have to use it. But it is a ridiculous amount of planning. It's overkill, but overkill saves you money.